Let's take a look at the new updates to Adobe Illustrator CC for January 2014. So the first new update is the live corners, and I have this pink star here, and if I wanted to turn it into a starfish and round all the edges, it would be a huge pain to do, but now with these little live corner features, we can change all of the corners quite easily. So you'll see there's these new little dots added to each of your corner points. If you click with the white arrow tool and you drag on these dots, you'll see that you start to round the corners. You can make them more or less round, and this is a really easy way to make a starfish. Now you can also do individual points. What you'll have to do is you'll have to select the individual anchor point first. So I'm going to click on this anchor point, and then I'm going to drag its dot, and you can see that I can curve this. So I can make some pretty complex shapes quite easily. Now, if you want more specific control over the type of curve, what you can do is you can double click on one of these little curved dots, and we'll get this extra option here, and then we can make inverted corner points. We can change the radius, we can do all kinds of different things. So let's change it a little bit first so we can see what it's going to do. And then we can change the corner point to inverted, chamfer, we can change the radius, we can change the type of rounding, and there you go. You get a very complex shape quite easily, and that would have taken a lot of time and effort to do in earlier versions of Illustrator. The next update we'll look at is to the pencil tool, which is right here, and let's just double click on it to open its options, and we have this new option for smoothing. Now, normally if you paint with the pencil without it being smoothed, you will get some kind of weird little bumps and lumps in your line here, which aren't always that helpful unless you want your line to look that way. So now we can smooth our pencil. If we double click on it, we turn smoothing up. When we draw, we get these nice curves now, rather than something that's all lumpy. And you can refine your shape down if you want to. Now this doesn't always work. You kind of have to be drawing right in the right spot, and you can't really do too much. If you want to reshape some of these curves, you can now do that very easily with the anchor point tool. Normally we would just use that to change anchor points from points to curves, but now we can use it in between 2 points on this curve here, and we can drag the curve. If we wanted to change that, we can make some pretty interesting modifications to our shape that way. See, I'm not clicking on the node or the anchor point, I'm clicking on the curve that's in the path there. The next feature we'll look at is being able to modify the perspective and have the artwork that you've drawn in perspective change with your perspective point. So I'm in the perspective mode right now with the perspective grid tool, and I'm going to change this perspective point and watch what happens here. See how I'm moving my perspective point, and my little cube house thing that I've drawn is rotating in perspective? Isn't that cool? Now you may have to make some adjustments after you've changed your perspective, especially if you have something much more complex than this. But this is a really cool feature, and the way that you do this is you'll have to draw some artwork first in your perspective mode. So I'll just start over from scratch here so you can see how that's done. Okay, so we'll take the rectangle tool, and we have our perspective turned on here. And what you have to do is you have to select which plane you're going to draw on. So the left plane is blue, and the right plane is orange. So we'll start with the left. We'll just draw on our grid here, and you can see it puts our rectangle into perspective. We'll go to the orange side, the right side. We'll draw the other side of our house. I'm not going to worry about getting the edges perfect here. I'm going to draw a couple windows. And then we'll go to the other side, the left side again, and we'll draw our door. And then the secret now is, before you can get all this stuff to move in perspective, you have to lock it into this perspective. So what you have to do is you have to go to View, Perspective, and we'll go to Lock Station Point. And what that's going to do is that's going to lock your artwork into perspective. So we'll lock it, And then now if we use the perspective tool again and we start moving our perspective point, now it's all locked into that mode. The next feature we'll look at is the new custom toolbar. And if you find that you have way too many tools here and a lot of them you don't end up using, you may just want to make a little custom toolbar with only the tools that you use. So if you go to Window, and then you go to Tools, and you go to New Tools Panel, you can create a new toolbar. So we can call this Custom, or whatever you want to name it. And there you go, you've got a new toolbar. Now you can add stuff to it. Now what you do is you just drag what you want over to the toolbar. So let's say we want this perspective tool, we'll drag that over. The eyedropper, we'll drag that over. And the hand tool, and black arrow tool, and so on. And you can really just customize this as much as you want. And then if you don't want to deal with this regular toolbar anymore, you can just hide it, and then you can put this new one wherever you want it. And there you go, you've got your simplified workspace here. Now if you want to manage that and rename it or delete it, you go to the Window menu, and you go to Tools, and you go to Manage Tools Panel, select the panel, and then you can delete it if you want to. You can go to OK. And if you find that you want to get your regular toolbar back, what you do is you go to the Window menu, and then you go to Tools and Default, and that will reinstate your regular toolbar. And you can just put it back where it was, and there you go. Now, if for some reason you have Illustrator set up with a bunch of custom toolbars and you have all your palettes arranged and everything, and for some reason you want to move that workspace or share that workspace with another computer, you can do that now. So if you want to now export your workspace, which is everything that you have here arranged the way you want it, you can go to Edit, and then you can go to My Settings, and you can go to Export Settings. That will export your entire workspace, your brushes, your swatches, all of your palettes, your tools, anything that you've customized. And then you'll be able to then send it to somebody or put it on a different computer by importing it. Now this is different from syncing your settings. That's a sync for you personally. This is more for something that you would be sharing with other people or putting on other computers. And the next feature that we'll look at is adding fonts directly from Typekit. And if we have some text here and we wanted to make pick a custom font from Typekit, what we can do is we can now go to our font menu and we can add fonts directly from Typekit. If we click on this, it'll open Typekit in our web browser. And if you have a Typekit account set up, you can go ahead and pick a font. Now the good thing is as soon as you select this font, it's going to automatically put it into Illustrator without you having to restart Illustrator. It'll also work in your other Adobe applications, and it will install into your computer so that you'll be able to use it on any program on your computer. The next feature we'll look at is the ability to scale and create artboards from the center. And I really like this scale from the center feature because if we go to Document Setup and we go to Edit Artboards, the advantage to scaling things from the center is that if you've already positioned them and you just want to make them bigger or smaller, you won't have to scale them like so and then have to remove them back to the center and then scale it more and move it back to the center. This just lets you place it once and then you can scale it from that point, which is really helpful when you're creating artboards. Now the trick to this is on your keyboard you're going to have to hold Shift and Alt, or on a Mac you'd be holding Shift and Option, and this works for a lot of other tools, believe it or not, like the rectangle tools and the other tools. If you hold Shift and Alt, a lot of the time you're going to be able to scale stuff from the center with a lot of these Adobe products, and that's a very helpful tip to carry on to other software besides Illustrator. And there's a bunch of little things that have been updated. Some of these are suggestions from customers who use Adobe Illustrator. The first one is in your Swatches palette, your fill and your stroke controls are now available, so that can be pretty handy. The next thing that we'll look at is opacity can now be adjusted with sliders. So rather than having a little drop-down menu that says 90%, 80%, 70%, We can just do it with a slider now if we want to change the transparency or the opacity of something. If you have a mouse with a mouse wheel, if you hold down Alt now and you zoom with your scroll wheel, you can zoom in and out. And if you hold down Option on Mac, that's how you do it. If you don't hold down Alt, what's going to happen is if you use your scroll wheel, you're going to pan up and down. So not holding Alt, holding Alt. Now the last few things I'll just kind of mention because I can't really demonstrate them here. The next feature is responsive SVG, and that's for scalable vector graphics. You can now export scalable vector graphics to put onto a web page, and if you do something like resize the web page, the scalable vector graphic will resize along with the web page, which it didn't used to do before. The next is support has been added for pressure-sensitive styli for Windows 8 tablet computers, and what that means is that you'll now be able to use pressure-sensitive pen like a Wacom pen to draw more naturally on your tablet computer. And then finally, layer states can be remembered now. So those are the features for January 2014 for Adobe Illustrator CC. If you found this information helpful, take a quick second to like this video and share it on YouTube, and that'll make it easier for other artists out there to find this information. Thanks for watching, and stay tuned for my next video.